Alrighty guys, so far we've covered the basics. We've learned how to create files and create folders and move them around and change the permissions on them. But today I'm going to teach you guys how to actually start outputting text into those files as well as reading text from those files. Now, there's several different tools available to us in Linux to do these different things. So I'm going to go through pretty much all of them with you today, and I'm going to go over the differences between them so that you know when to use each of these individual tools. Now, the first one, let me just clear this text off the screen. The first one that I'm going to teach you about is called the head command. Now, what head allows us to do is to get the first 10 lines of output from a file. Now, that's just the default. Of course, you can change it. So let me go ahead and show you that. Head stairwaytoheaven.txt. And you see, this has given us the first 10 lines of the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven. Now, we can see what our options are available to us with the help command. It's, of course, the most important option for all of our commands. And there is our N option, which is going to allow us to specify the number of lines that we want. So if we don't just want the first 10 lines of Stairway to Heaven, maybe we want the first 20 lines, we can do head, N, the number 20, stairwaytoheaven.txt, and bam, we've got the first 20 lines of Stairway to Heaven. We can do the same thing with bytes if you want, so maybe you don't necessarily want the first 20 lines of the file, maybe you want the first 80 bytes that is in the file. So for us to do that, we would do head, C, the number of bytes that we want to output, and then stairwaytoheaven.txt. And it's going to go ahead and give us those first few bytes. Now, you may have noticed that doing it this way has resulted in our prompt being moved a little bit. Well, you can see that on this third line, it didn't quite finish everything. It got only to the word stairway, and it didn't include to or heaven. But there's also another invisible character here that it didn't get to, which is the new line character. Now, the new line character, just like its name says, is a character that tells a file when one line ends and another line is beginning. So, of course, we didn't have that. Let's see if we can get right before that new line character. Let's see, 88. We almost have the whole word heaven. Let's see, 90. That was just too many. So 89 is going to give us everything but our new line character. So 1 byte. Typically 1 byte ends up getting used for I think each letter. Yeah, usually a byte is used for each letter. So of course our 1 byte for our new line character was left off, which is why it's like this. And you can just fix it by pressing enter, and it'll give you a new prompt where everything is set up correctly. Now, our next command is the tail command, and as I'm sure you guessed, tail gives you the last 10 lines of a file. And just like with head, we have options to change this. It is also the same options, so we can do tail N20, and that'll give us the last 20 lines of the file. Another option that's available for both head and tail is the V option, which gives us verbose output. In this case, all it does is print the name of our file at the top of the output with a couple of arrows pointing to it. Now you may be wondering, okay, Mental, you showed me how to view the head, you showed me how to view the tail. What if I just want to view the whole damn file? Well, A useful command to do that would be the cat command. So we can type cat, name of our file, Stairway to Heaven, and it has outputted all of the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven here in our terminal. Now, technically, this isn't what the cat command is meant for. Of course, you can use the cat command in this way. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. But cat actually stands for concatenate. What the original intention of this program was for is to concatenate, which means to combine two separate files. So if I do an ls, you can see I have a number of files here. So maybe I want to concatenate Gallows Pole and Stairway to Heaven together. Maybe I'm, printing up some book of Led Zeppelin lyrics. I can do this, and you see it has combined them for us. Let's see, it looks like, yeah, so here is where our Gallows Pole ends, and then here is where our Stairway to Heaven begins. Now, cat has a number of options that are available to us for reading and concatenating files as well. The first one I'm going to show you is, of course, help, the most important one that shows you everything you can do with the command. So let's do a cat with the option n. What that's going to do is show us all of the line numbers for the file. So you see right next to it, we have all of the different line numbers. Now, at the bottom, we have these two blank lines, 52 and 53. You may not want to see all of the numbers where there isn't actually text on the line. So if that's the case, you could do cat with option B, and it'll do just that. So it only goes to 51 instead of going to 53 with the two blank ones. We can also view the ends of the lines as well if we wanted to see exactly where a line ends, because there could be invisible characters at the end of this line. Like there could be, there's the new line character, of course. There could be trailing white spaces because of tabs or because of spaces. So if you want to be sure that there's nothing like that going on, you could do cat with the capital E option, and it'll place a $sign where the absolute end of each line is. And here too, showing you that there's not some huge block of invisible text, there's just two new line characters right there. And T will also show you if there's any tabs present. I don't think there is right now. Let's see. Yeah, there's no tab present. So let's make some tabs inside of this. Let's do like a couple here at the end. Let's do a couple here at the beginning. And screw it. Let's do a couple right in the middle, right there. So then if we do our cat T, you'll see that it actually shows us, this is the character representation of a tab. So it shows us where all of those are. And it doesn't show the ends of it. I guess Vim automatically got rid of them when I wrote the file. That's interesting. All right, now cat is pretty good, but it can be a little bit cumbersome if you're trying to look at a very big file. So for example, I've got this here, the nuclear fusion wiki. So if I were to cat that, it's going to give us a lot of outputs because obviously the nuclear fusion wiki has a lot of information there. And depending on what terminal you're using, which is going to largely depend on what distro you're using or how you set it up, if you're using Gen 2 Arch or something like that, you may not have a scroll back ability present to you in your terminal. I have one in mine, of course, but if you don't have a scroll back utility there in your terminal, then cat is not going to work for you. What you would want to do instead is you would want to use the more or the less command. So let me go ahead and show that off to you. If I do more nuclear fusion wiki, you see that it doesn't take us back to our output prompt in our shell, it's almost as if we used Vim or Nano to go inside of the file, but we're not actually really inside of the file. This is just kind of a reading mode for us to be able to view it. And if we want to move forward in this file, we can just hit space, which will move us forward one page. We can read the rest of this stuff and then hit space when we're done, and so on and so forth until we get to the end of the file where it's going to exit out of that view. Now, more only lets you read it in a very linear type of fashion. If you need to maybe read a line and then go down and then go back within your file, you're going to want to use less instead. So less is, didn't want to do this one. We'll do less nuclear fusion wiki. So less is going to give you the ability to be able to go back in your file, as well as to be able to go forward line by doing the down arrow key. And of course you see I'm able to go back. I can go forward pages, back pages. To go forward, you hit spacebar. To go back, you just type B. And we can keep going to the very end, but it's not going to automatically make us get out of the file like more did. If we want to actually quit out of this view here, we have to press Q, and then it's going to bring us right back to our prompt there. All right, so we covered more, we covered less, we covered cat. Oh yeah, so let's cover grep now. Grep is used if you want to search for specific characters or specific strings within a file. So let's say that I want to see every occurrence of the word heaven in stairwaytoheaven.txt. I can do grep for that. And you see this is going to output us each line and the full line where heaven occurs in Stairway to Heaven. Now, this doesn't actually give us the line numbers, so maybe you would want to know what the line numbers are. Well, there is an option for that. If we look at our most important option, help, you see that there's actually a whole lot of different options that you have available for grep. And just as a side note, this is something to keep in mind for a lot of commands in Linux. When there is a command that has a whole bunch of different options available to you, typically you'll have what's called a man page available to you to read. It's pretty much the same as help, but it actually gives you quite a bit more information, and it lets you read it in a more manual type of fashion way. So you would access that by doing man and then grep. And then this brings us into the manual for grep. And we could read through all this if we wanted to, but we're not going to do that today. So we're just going to quit out of it. And then that's how you can see all the options available to you. Same thing with other commands on Linux. If it's got a whole lot of options, it's probably going to have a man page. So let's start using some different options in grep. We can do grep n, stairwaytoheaven.txt, and of course I got to specify what I'm searching for. So let's search for stairway this time. And we see stairway appears on line 3, line 7, line 41, and line 51. Now, maybe we want to only know the number of times that stairway appears. So maybe we're not actually interested in what lines are on there or anything. Maybe we're just having fun and we want to know how many times is the word heaven actually in Stairway to Heaven. We can do that with the C option. Type in the string that we're looking for, the name of the file that we want to look into, and we see heaven only actually appears 3 times in Stairway to Heaven. Actually, it may be more times than that. Let's see if we can add another option, I. So what I is going to do is this is going to ignore uppercase or lowercase for our particular string. So what this is going to do is it's going to search for heaven, and it doesn't matter whether it's spelled like this or whether it's spelled like this, or it could be spelled funny like this. You get the idea. It's going to search every single occurrence of it. And what do you know? There really is only 3 instances of the word heaven in Stairway to Heaven. Even I wouldn't have known that. Let's see. Oh, so we also have the H option. Now what this is going to do is something kind of similar to N, but instead what it's going to do is it's just going to print the name of the file next to each one. So this is a little bit similar to the verbose output that we had with cat. We have an inverted option. So maybe we don't want all of the lines that have heaven. Maybe instead we want to know all of the lines that don't have heaven. So we would do V, which is going to invert this search. And there we go. We have all of the lines in Stairway to Heaven which do not have the word heaven in them, which is quite a lot. Again, surprised me quite a bit. And with grep, we also have the ability to search multiple files. So maybe we have a bunch of different lyrics that we want to look at. I have quite a few here. And we want to see, are there any particular words that show up in multiple files? Well, we can do that with grep and then L, which is going to allow us to search through multiple files. And let's look for the word high, because I know that's going to show up in a couple of these. Now, you may be wondering, how is it that we would actually specify the files that we want to look at? Well, there are a couple of different options available to us. What we could do is we could grep high. Oh wait, we need our L option. Grep L high. And then we can start typing the individual names of all the different files we want to look at. So we'll look inside of Casey Jones. We'll look inside of Gallows Pole. We'll look inside of the 10 Crack Commandments. And we'll look inside of Stairway to Heaven. And then we see there that out of all those files, it's only inside of Casey Jones and 10 Crack Commandments. But obviously, that's a whole lot of typing to do. We really don't want to do that. Well, here's a trick that we can do, remembering a trick I showed you from the previous video. We can do grep L high, and then we can use a wildcard. Now, what this wildcard would do, as you remember from the last video, is this is going to search all of the files that are present in this directory. So if we do that, now we see it's inside of 10 Crack Commandments, Casey Jones, and the Nuclear Fusion Wiki. So that's grep, which shows us how to find different instances of words within a file. Now, let's start outputting some text to a file. We'll touch a new file, like so, and then the way that we would input text, we could, of course, vim into this new file, and then we could start, typing out a bunch of stuff here, but we don't actually want to do it that way. What if we want to be a really cool kid and output to our file without even leaving the command prompt? We can do that in a number of ways. We can echo, and we can start typing whatever we want. Of course, make sure to put it inside of these quotes so that it's able to differentiate between text that you're outputting and not something else. So we can echo hello world, classic string, and then you have to do these arrows to tell it where you actually want to put this text, because if we didn't have the arrows and we did echo hello world, it's just going to print hello world to our screen, which obviously we don't want that. We want to output it to newfile.txt. And now if I were to cat newfile.txt, you see we have hello world. Now, there is another command that does this called printf, which in a way is actually better than hello world because printf tends to be more consistent. Like on my machine, I believe that echo automatically puts a new line character each time I use it. I'm gonna test that out real quick. Yeah, so it automatically puts it. Printf doesn't. Now, you might think, well, if printf doesn't do this, doesn't that mean that it's worse? Not exactly. So echo does it on my machine, but echo may not do this on your machine, or it may not do it on a friend's machine. It all depends on how their machine is configured, but printf is the most consistent out of any other way to just start outputting text to a file. So I can do printf, hello once again, my friend, to new file. And you'll see because I didn't do a new line, it probably put that on the same line as hello again. Let's see. Yep, it did. Now, we can do new lines inside of printf. We just have to put in an actual new line character. We talked about that earlier, remember? So I'm going to show you how to do a new line character. Hello, once again, my friend. And we want a \n, new file. And let's put one before as well, because I don't want it to all just be, shoved up together. Actually, no, it looks like it did do... Okay, it did do a new line. I looked at that wrong. What it didn't do is it didn't insert the new line character at the end. So it doesn't automatically know that you want a new line, but I'm specifying one at the beginning and one at the end this time. And let's see how this looks. It's probably going to have a blank line now. No, okay. It did it exactly as echo was meant to do it. Now, with these double arrows, there's a lot of other cool things that you can do with this. So we know about the ifconfig command, but what if you wanted to just copy all of this to a text file? Well, we can do that with the double arrows. First, let's go ahead and touch, we'll call this ifconfig.txt. And if we look inside so that you see there's no tricks, there's nothing currently written into this ifconfig. But if we do ifconfig, double arrow, ifconfig.txt, then we cat ifconfig.txt, you see that our ifconfig has been written to our text file. This works the same way with any other command. So just like how I showed you cat earlier with Stairway to Heaven and Gallows Pole, what if we want to copy all of this to one single file? Well, we can create that file. We'll say ledzeppelinfans.txt. And we'll bring back up our cat command, and we're going to output this to ledzeppelinfans.txt. And now if I cat out ledzeppelinfans.txt, or better yet, let's use less to view it because it's going to be pretty long. You can see that this new file now contains the output of both of those previous files. So literally, this double arrow, it works for any command that could give you output to the screen. Alrighty guys, so that's how you read and write text to files. As you know, any questions, feel free to leave them down there in the comments below. Make sure you like this video, make sure you share it so that other folks can see it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you know when more videos are coming out. Peace out, guys.